So I'm back with biomimicry chemistry. This is in continuation with my earlier videos, like the innovation through biomimicry part 1 and part 2, and then we had biomimicry and light weighting and biomimetic managers. So this is in continuation with that. We have biomimetic chemistry, and this is going to be a very short video because most of the things have been covered in the earlier videos, so I'm not really going to repeat certain things. So biomimetic chemistry has become quite important these days, as you probably aware that there has been a lot of deterioration of Earth's environment, and there are a lot of movements which have started, and because of the climate change and other factors together. So green chemistry has become quite important, and biomimicry contributes to the understanding of green chemistry and takes it to the next level. So man-made material involve toxic chemistry at some point in their life cycle. In fact, in the onset of industrial revolution, the fossil fuel has been used, like coal or diesel or petrol or toxic chemicals have been used to power turbines or run machines and manufacturing material. In fact, the most important polymer which we have produced, that is ethylene polymer, which is the hydrocarbon based non-biodegradable, which is the building block of all that we make. That is the ethylene polymer, which is polyethylene or polythene plastic. So this is a byproduct of our chemistry. So we have produced unsustainable source of energy also to degrade and pollute air, water, soil, and even noise and light, and all this put together. We have to look for sustainable source of sustainable innovations, and that is where biomimicry or biomimetic chemistry has a role to play. So before I get into biomimetic chemistry, there is one slide which I have forgotten in my earlier videos, which I forgot to put. So therefore I'm going to spend some time, because it's a very interesting and innovative idea which has come out. So I'm going to spend some time to discuss that. We discussed in the first video, second video probably, where we discussed about innovation through biomimicry. We discussed about swarm intelligence and how the birds are having certain parameters on which they create this very efficient, energy efficient pattern, that V shape. So this has been a source of inspiration by Scania truck company, and what they've done is they've created a concept called platooning, which they started in 2010. Now let me also point out that biomimicry is a new field, and in 2005 onwards it started picking up, and in the last 10 years, last decade, there have been a lot of innovations which has been inspired by biomimicry. A lot of research have been done in this field, and patents have been because of biomimicry. So the platooning, which started in 2010 by Scania, what they do is that they created a economically efficient and ecologically friendly concept, which is a real-time coordination, and it's based on principle of collaboration, like what you see in the birds here. And what there's a vehicle-to-vehicle communication with adaptive system, and the trucks tend to create a synchronized. They tend to get into a synchronized single unit. So the truck in the front actually drives, the other becomes the truck in the behind. All the trucks which is following the lead truck, they tend to become autonomous single unit. So it's a synchronized single unit. So these are connected through radar, camera, and GPS or cloud-based Wi-Fi. So so the individual response, brake response, tends to become zero. So which means that they can follow each other very close. So because it's a simultaneous braking. So what happens is that it reduces space. So the trucks tend to take very less space, and which increase the road safety, and also reduces traffic jam and so on. And also because as you probably see from the birds, these trucks tend to reduce the air drag so substantially, and there is the noted fuel reduction in fuel consumption, which equates to less carbon dioxide or carbon footprint. So it's a cooperative controlling system, and I thought I need to include this because it's a beautiful concept. If there is one slide which encapsulates the problem we are facing, is this particular slide here. On the left side we have a living world, on the right side we have the modern world, the modern industry which has created the so-called modern world. And if you look at the living world, what it does is that it harnesses energy in controlled way to build complex systems. Whereas in the modern world, we have taken all the toxic elements and we have created a disaster situation. So if you look at the living world, we have, let's take the example of plants. And what the plant does, it takes the energy from the sun, which is incoming photons, and the photons is able to charge the flow of electrons, which powers the cellular machinery of the plants, and in the process it takes in carbon dioxide from air to create complex carbon-based compounds, like for instance the carbohydrate polymers like cellulose, and which becomes a building block for plants. So what it does is that it harnesses energy to build complex systems that nurture life. Whereas what we have done is that we have taken everything, all the toxic elements and hazardous elements, and if you look at the amount of pollution which has happened in the last few decades, air, water, sound, light, and importantly soil pollution, which is a byproduct of chemical reactions. Some years back there was a survey, in fact a kind of an interesting survey which was done in social media to find out what saved more number of human lives in the last 100 years. And of course there were a lot of candidates and a lot of discussions, and Fleming's penicillium, which led to antibiotics, and also green revolution and so on, or polio vaccine by Jonas Salk. And the Norman Borlaug's green revolution also had was one of the top contenders, and because of the hybrid wheat and so on. But one thing which actually stood out was the Haber's reaction. Now Haber's reaction, some of you must have studied in school, is regarding production of ammonia. In nature, nitrogen is there in abundance, in fact 78%, but it is not able to be broken because nitrogen is triple bond. It's difficult to break it, and so nitrogen fixation happens through bacteria. It's a lot of time and lightning, and it takes a lot of energy to break the bond. So the synthetic fertilizer or the chemical fertilizer was in demand, and when Haber's process led to the chemical fertilizers, what we call the famous equation, nitrogen plus 3H2 is equal to 2NH3. You must have studied that, and which led to abundance of nitrogen in the atmosphere, in the soil, and which had in the recent times shown us how soil pollution has crept in. And in fact, not only soil pollution, but we also have nitrous oxide, one of the carbon greenhouse gases, which is also byproduct of chemical fertilizers. So nitrate leaching, which leads to eutrophication of water bodies and acidification of soil, and this is what we have done in the last many decades. Of course, it has saved a lot of life in terms of increase in food production, but it is not a sustainable innovation. So it's a chemical process which has created a lot of problems. So I think it's about time that we pause and we take a stock of what have we achieved so far and what has the impact of what we have done in the last many decades. So when we are talking about biomimetic chemistry, we are looking at three levels. One is chemicals, and then the chemical, that the compound which is used, then the chemical processes, then the chemistry derived material. So there are three levels at which we talk when we are talking about green chemistry. And as you probably know, life is built on chemistry, and the vital processes or metabolism are chemical reactions. We have actually discussed this in the first video, where we discussed about life's the water is the basis of life's chemistry, and we also discussed that life uses only subset of elements in the periodic table. So, and that too non-toxic elements. So these are things which I've discussed in the earlier videos. So life configure itself into precise 3D structures, not in its architecture but its composition also. So it's a process of maximizing self-assembly, and in the process guiding chemical activity and material performance, and also at the end of the life cycle the biodegradation into useful constituents. So this is the basis of life's chemistry. And this picture here is of Venus flower basket, which is a sea sponge. Now what this Venus flower basket does is that it pulls out silica from the seawater, and this particular structure is it has been found to transmit light better than industrial optical fibers. So this is how life chemistry works. This particular slide has been used in the earlier video, in a different context, where we discussed about how the color blue and how it developed in the pre-petrochemical eras and how it is developed all. But here I'm going to discuss this particular slide to explain that in the pre-petrochemical era, we were looking for replacing nature by three synthetic chemicals, whereas in petrochemical era, the predominating idea was to dominate nature, whereas now hopefully we're moving towards an era where we're looking at nature as a mentor, as an inspiration. So so that we can create not only high performing but also life friendly designs and products. So nature provides a lot of innovative possibilities that is tried, tested, and it has survived the challenges of millions of years. So what we have done is that we have used all the toxic chemicals and increased high temperature and high pressure and all that to conduct reactions, chemical reactions. And the outcome is that we have huge industrial waste and pollutions, not only air, water, and noise pollution, but also soil pollution. But what nature does is that it uses shape to conduct to subtly, and has a lot of nuances in conducting reactions. We have discussed this in detail in the earlier video. Now, if you recall, last year the Nobel Prize in chemistry was given to CRISPR-Cas9, and this CRISPR technology is a kind of a revolutionary gene editing tool, genome editing tool, which helps us to bypass natural selections and get us direct control over evolution. This is the most important innovation in the biology in the recent times. And this CRISPR-Cas9, the reason why I'm mentioning this here is which is the CRISPR-Cas9, which is a molecule of scalpel, is actually a protein which evolved through millions of years in bacteria to find and destroy viral DNA. So it evolved in bacteria. And that is why when we talk about extinctions of species, which we discussed in the earlier video also, not only there's a loss of biodiversity and has a debilitating effect on the natural systems, but it is also a loss for possible innovations like amazing technology like CRISPR-Cas9. So that is revolutionizing the whole biology. So that is the reason why we have to have sustainable, innovative solutions. So now let's understand how life works, its chemistry. And the building blocks of life works at two levels. One is the biomineralization process, which leads to hard surface or hard phase, and another is biopolymerization, which is the soft phase. So the hard phase or the biomineralization is what produces shells. For instance, the picture which you see here is abalone shell, and all the shells which you come across the hard material. And then you have fish, examples of fish scale or reptile scales or even bones or teeth. All these are examples of the biomineralization process. Like for instance, if you look at abalone shell, it is one of the toughest ceramic which is produced in nature, and it can withstand even the weight of one truck. So it is that hard. So the toughest ceramic produced. So what happens in this case is that the shell secretes protein template, which helps in the crystallization of calcium and carbonate ions from the seawater. So that is how the process happens. There is no high temperature or high pressure or toxic material used. So the dissolved ions in the seawater is how the process happens. And this is how life works as chemistry. And the soft phase is biopolymerization process where the soft tissue is produced. Now the interface between hard phase and the soft phase is where the critical is a critical space, because it helps in the maintaining of the structural integrity and also helps in supporting the specific function of biological material. Now how it is done, all that is pretty detailed, but the gradient and spatial distributions in terms of cellular or fibrous or tubular, the functional gradient distribution in terms of, we have discussed all this in the lightweighting video, where we discussed how the gradient, functional gradient happens, and how the organisms are able to create functions out of same material. So all that we can discuss. You can go through my lightweighting video, biomimicry and lightweighting. Thank you. So you can also visit me at this particular video, Innovation Through Biomimicry, to know more about structural coloring, which is actually a huge step towards reducing chemical wastes. So in the earlier video we discussed about how geckos are able to utilize, manipulate in fact the natural forces like van der Waals forces to create adhesiveness, and this has been a source for non-chemical adhesives, and this is an example where there's a lot of possibilities which nature presents, and we have to make a conscious effort to design chemical products and processes that reduce and eliminate the use of or not only use but generation of substances across the product life cycle, right from manufacturing to design, and right from design to manufacturing and use and final disposal. So by understanding the principles behind how these organisms use life-friendly chemistry, we can create actually chemistry, commercial chemistry, chemicals, create commercial chemicals and chemistry-based materials that are high-performing and life-friendly. So now let's take some examples to understand these better. So this is sandfish lizard. These sandfish lizards are found in Namib deserts, and they are called sandfish because it literally swims inside in the sand. Now they are found buried in the sand because to keep themselves cool in the desert, and it's found that the abrasive dry sand not only does not damage its skin, but it does not even stick to its skin. As you can see in the picture here, it's shining. So that is because the keratin in its skin has a sugar coating with the sulfur compound. Now this sulfur-sulfur bonding creates structure that cancels out van der Waals forces, and the van der Waals forces between the lizard scale and the sand, and thus reducing abrasion. So earlier we saw lizard geckos which is using van der Waals forces to actually climb the wall, and here we have using removing van der Waals forces to not to stick. Now just imagine the amount of possibilities it has, where it can eliminate toxic lubricants, and in the industrial manufacturing process, in the industrial machinery, where from manufacturing to handling to disposal, all that toxic chemicals, the possibilities are there. So removing all these toxic chemicals. So there is a Velcro movement which is happening in chemical industry, and it is called lotus effect. We spend array of toxic chemicals to keep the surface clean. A huge amount of investment which is happening to keep the surface clean. And now there is a new material which is available. It is called self-cleaning material, or self-cleaning surfaces, which is utilizing the same principles which what lotus leaf does, and that is why it is called lotus effect. Now what lotus leaf does is that it manipulates the structure of its surface at nanoscale by producing tiny needles like waxy protrusions, which tends to kind of repel water molecules, and these water molecules, because of the surface tension, tends to remain spherical, and with gravity they roll down and taking the dirt with them. So this is self-cleaning material, and there is now it has been widely used in paints, and there is a company which is called Lotus and Paints, which is a self-cleaning paint, and these self-cleaning materials or non-sticking materials, like for instance self-cleaning windows, or non-stick medical equipments, or kitchenwares, which can just be simply rinsed and reused. So imagine the amount of chemicals or wastages which is reduced. So also it can be used for coating of boats, and thus reducing the drag, and protect surfaces and equipments, and even there's a lot of possibilities in textiles where it prevents staining, and it can remain dry even underwater. So this particular innovation has potential to remove a lot of toxic chemicals and also reduce pollution, in fact eliminate pollution which has been used for cleaning. So this is a beetle here, and as you can see it has a stunning brilliant white shell, and this is using what we call structural coloring. It has a very ultra thin extra shell on its surface which creates this brilliant white color. And for more of structural coloring, you can visit my earlier videos. Now there is a lot of possibilities, potential for this particular strategy of survival, and we can utilize this in chemical pigments where we can have white coating to keep the surface clean, and clean is equal to white is where there are a lot of possibilities. And here not only in paints but metal coatings, but even dental. Also, there's another possibility is to eliminate bleaching agents. The way we try to keep the surface clean, the bleaching agents or chemical coatings, which can be for white surfaces or like paper or even textiles or even dental. So another possibility which can be to for LED coating, which creates lights which is much more brighter. So this is another example. I'm giving examples here. So this is another example which has a lot of potential to reduce harmful chemicals. So another example here is a very good example of blue mussels. Now blue mussels, probably most of you are aware, is a bivalve shellfish that attached to slippery wet rocks in the wave-bounded intertidal seashores. And these mussels they tend to secrete a unique, thread-like, strong, flexible protein that has powerful adhesive property even underwater. So this particular researcher had gone to beach to actually to catch crabs for dinner, and he ended up observing these mussels, and he went back and he worked on it, and he created this mussel-inspired biomimetic polymer, which was actually soya-based. He, being a Chinese American, he recalled that they used soya as a in adhesive purposes, so he included that, and that is how we have this blue mussel-inspired biomimetic polymer, which is non-toxic biodegradable adhesive. Now this has completely revolutionized the plywood industry. As you're probably aware, the indoor pollution is a major concern, and toxic fumes mostly emanate from binding agents, formaldehyde-based glues that is used in furniture or other utensils or other household items. So another good example of blue mussels and how it led to revolutionizing the whole idea of binding things and reducing the chemical used, as well as sustainable solution. So I have another video on biomimetic lightweighting. You can go through it. So this is also another example of, if you reduce the weight, if you reduce the material, the chemical process involved will be reduced substantially. So it's another way of looking at how biomimicry is helping to reduce chemical pollution. So the last example in this particular video is that of tardigrade. Tardigrade is an amazing species, and some of you might have heard about tardigrades. Now it was in the news last year because of last year I think so, because of Israeli satellite crashing into moon, and it was carrying samples of tardigrade. Now tardigrade is also known as water bear, and it is about 1 millimeter in length, and it can survive a temperature range of 150 degrees centigrade to minus 273 degrees centigrade, which means amazing range of temperature survivability. And also it can survive in vacuum, and NASA has found it can even survive in space. Now it can withstand 1,000 times more radiation than human beings. Now tardigrade evolved about 400 million years back, which means it has faced all the 5 major extinction events, and it has a capacity to survive the next one also. So this amazing species, as if there is going to be a nuclear holocaust possibility is there, then this is or any natural disasters or all this climate change initiated all these disasters, anthropogenic disasters, it is going to be tardigrade which is going to survive. There is no doubt about that. Now what it does is it can stay in suspended animation for 100 years, believe that, 100 years. And how it does is that it replaces the water in its cell with sugar solution that thickens and solidifies as glass. So that is how it stays dormant. Now this has a lot of applications or biomimetic possibilities in long-term storage of vaccines or pharmaceutical drugs. So what they do is that they spray dry these vaccines using sugar syrup, and which is a making it very cost-effective vaccines or pharmaceutical drugs without need for refrigeration. Now the problem here is refrigeration has become a big problem, and taking it to remote areas is the reason why there is a high mortality rate and low HDI index in many of the poorer societies because of the remoteness. So this has potential for saving a lot of lives. Now these are different examples I gave in this particular video to show that how nature does not use toxic chemicals, and how it uses sustainable solutions, and where we can have learning for biomimetic solutions. So green chemistry or biomimetics chemistry has a lot of to learn from nature.